back on Lehocky Postgame Show, brought to you by our friends at Ocean Casino. Go for the live show. Go for the win. Derek Gunn, Mark Barzetta, John McMullen will be joining us. Our thanks again to Mike Missinelli for jumping on with us. How about Ryan Fitzpatrick? You want Ryan Fitzpatrick? You want to take him out of, what is he doing, direct TV commercials now?
Okay,
what is he doing?
How about Phillip Rivers? Since he was San Francisco's alternative plan had they gotten to the Super Bowl, Phillip Rivers was coming out of retirement. Why not bring him?
Phillip Rivers, definitely bring the family bus to Philadelphia. Absolutely,
all nine kids. Bring all 9 kids with you.
I think he's got 10 now. I think they're expecting number 10 because I think it's one more and he has a complete offense.
What? 10?
Yeah. I think he's got 10 kids. I think he's expecting number 10.
Man,
you gotta have the retirement, baby. You gotta have the retirement, baby.
I love kids, but there's a limit. There's a limit on kids, man. I got 3. I got 4 grandkids. Yeah, there's a limitation. Yeah.
How many brothers you got? I know you got one brother. How many?
One brother and 2 sisters.
Okay. My mom, my lovely mother, is one of 12. I can say from personal experience that you get into double digits, man. Just good luck to you. Just good luck to you the rest of the way. Also, Phillip Rivers, I think he owes our friend Trey Thomas. I think he owes Trey Thomas like $100 for a Domino's game that they started out there in San Diego many years ago. So maybe if he comes to Philadelphia, they could settle that score finally. I'm sure Trey is going to hold him to it.
Yeah, Trey's painting gallery.
Exactly. They'll settle the score that way. Let's see. Ben Roethlisberger, he's recently retired.
Well, you really are reaching.
I'm just saying, Chase Daniel name was brought up.
Look, so I saw this one. I was cracking up. Griffin Renzi. Breaking news: Eagles signed Ron Jaworski, according to Adam Schefter. Man, these people are brutal, man.
Let's see here. Who else is out there?
Archie.
Wait.
You're going to do that? Go back to Wyatt Tittle. Get Wyatt Tittle back.
Where's Tyrod Taylor these days? Oh, he's with the Giants.
I believe he is backing up the Giants. Yes.
Let's see here. Looking around a little bit more. Let's get one more name out there. Case Keenum with the Bills. I'd rather. Andy Dalton, is he still with the Cowboys?
No,
no, he's with the Saints. The Saints. What am I saying?
No, he's not with the Saints anymore. He's with Carolina now.
Good God.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's enough of that. Wow. Okay, I'm done. I can't go down this rabbit hole. I got to get out of this. All right. We talked about Nakobe Dean as a linebacker. We mentioned Christian Ellis. I got to say, that series that Christian Ellis had where he had 2 tackles, shed blocks on both those tackles on the same series, then had the pass breakup. I mean, he looked like he was moving around well, but this guy's going to be a starting linebacker for this team. I really feel like, Zach Cunningham has to have a good game. I think he led the team in tackles tonight at a tackle for loss. He played a really good game. But I think Christian Ellis, I'll just put it like this. He has a really good chance to actually start next to Nakobe Dean as a linebacker on this team. And if he's not starting, I think he's going to get significant reps. He's really impressed me. The things people have been saying about him during practice have been glowing remarks. And then seeing him on the field tonight seemed like he got extended amount of playing time. He looks like he is ready to make plays at the NFL level.
What have I been telling you for weeks?
Watch Christian Ellis.
Did I not believe that Morrow was the penciled in starter at the will linebacking position? There's some teams that believe in a smaller backer, and it's worked for them. But for whatever reason, Kazir White, everybody was reviewing him early in the season. All of a sudden, he started to fade, and people got, they fell out of love with him. I just think that Morrow may be a little too light at 6'1", 215 for the will backer spot. You look at Christian Ellis at 6'3", 235, 240, and you look at the way he played tonight. He got up in the hole. He took on blockers, shed blockers. He blew up a screen play at one point. He had a great play on the coverage play over the middle that Mike was talking about. And I think he's hungry. And he doesn't just want to make this team; he wants to assert himself, and he's playing like it right now. Mm-hmm. But here's the kicker to all this. This was all. I was guaranteed that Ellis was going to supplant Morrow until they brought in Miles Jack and Zach Cunningham. Now, both of those guys are highly decorated, highly paid. It came in here in a bargain basement price. They're hungry. They want to. They're using these one-year contracts, hopefully to parlay that into some bigger money. They're both still, like in their late 20s. I could see. I wouldn't be surprised now if somehow, some way, Zach Cunningham moves up this depth chart, or Miles Jack. If Nakobe Dean gets hurt, from what we've seen so far, it looks like Miles Jack would be in the middle of this defense. But I wouldn't be surprised now with Cunningham here, because he's a bigger body. If somehow, some way, he supplants both of the leapfrogs past both of these guys and becomes your starter at that will spot.
Kayvon Wallace, Zach Cunningham, both in on 7 tackles tonight. Zach McPherson was in on 6. By the way, they abused and abused. I felt like the Browns had a personal vendetta against McPherson in the first, first 2 possessions. Jeez. He had 6 tackles tonight. Christian Ellis had 5. He was in on 5. He had 3 solos. 2 tackles for loss for Christian Ellis. 1 tackle for loss for Zach Cunningham. One more thing I want to say about the linebacker position. Ben Van Sumeren, tomato, 5 tackles today. 3 of them were solo. And this is the guy I had my doubts on, man. Everyone was talking about the freak athlete and all that stuff, raw talent, blah, blah, blah. The guy played himself a good game, had a tackle on special teams, did a good job there, had a batted pass, got into the backfield to rush a pass as well. They actually blitzed him on a good play that ended up being, I think, a pass breakup by McMullen out there on down the sideline. But very aggressive, and I'm seeing that raw talent that everyone was talking about, and I'm seeing it actually develop into a little bit of talent. Probably a practice squad guy, not making the roster, but probably a practice squad guy. That's where I put him.
And not only that, but if you're somehow on the roster, more of a special teams type guy, based on the depth that they have at the position right now. The only way you even talk about him getting on the field, I believe, is if you're down to just him, and I believe if that was the case, they'd bring in another veteran sitting out there somewhere like they did last year with an Ndamukong Suh and a Linval Joseph. It might take a week or 2 to get him up to speed in terms of what they want him to do. That guy will be on the field, but I don't think in any way, shape, or form he gets on the football field for this team other than special teams play, if that.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm with you there. Let's head over to Lincoln Financial Field, talk to our man John McMullen, writer extraordinaire, and, of course, co-host of Birds 365, the great John McMullen, joining us. John, what's going on, brother?
How are you guys? We got through it. It was a long time, but we got through it. Boy, man, they went, too many injuries. Number one, that's the serious part of it. But
let's start right there. Gunnar has given us a little bit of an update a moment ago. We have any more news on the 6 Eagles? Most notably, of course, talking about a Jomo in Cleveland tonight who had neck injuries.
Yeah, I hope they're both moving their extremities. So You hope they're very cautious nowadays, and they want to stabilize anybody who's even remotely near a head or a neck injury. So the hope is there that it's not as serious as it looks anytime when you see the cart. I think long term, the injury to Zach McPherson certainly looked the most difficult, and that looks like a long-term injury. Got to talk to Nolan Smith in the locker room, so he's fine with the shoulder injury. And then Josh Andrews left with an ankle injury, and I'm missing one. There were 6. I'm trying to think of them all. But Olamide is fine. He came back on the field. So that should be a short-term thing as well. But, let's be honest. The Eagles don't care about losses, draws, wins in the preseason. All they care about is getting the week 1 healthy, and they got 6 guys hurt tonight. So that's the real loss. That's the biggest concern. Then the second biggest concern to me is, boy, man, Marcus Mariota is just not picking up this offense. And, for those who used to crap upon Gardner Minshew's a better backup quarterback than Marcus Mariota. Now, obviously, you don't want Jalen Hurts. You want him to play every game. But if you need somebody to come in for a game or 2, the Eagles were much better last year than they are this year. And then you're going to have the fan base, and they've already started. Well, Tanner McKee should be the backup. Nick Sirianni shot that down. He's not ready. Understand the context of preseason. He's playing against 3rd and 4th string players. He was very good. He's even better than the numbers look because there were about 4 drops on him. So he's performing very well, but he's not ready to be a backup in this league. And the Eagles know it. And it's about getting Marcus Mariota up to speed, and it doesn't look good right now.
John, correct me if I'm wrong in this regard, but based on the way the young players were flying around the field last week against Baltimore, I just felt Cleveland had much more energy coming out of the gate in this game than the Eagles did. I mean, they walked down the field, and luckily Nakobe Dean, after making a gaffe on the unnecessary roughness, comes back and strips the ball, saves the day somewhat. But I just thought Cleveland had more energy than his team for some reason tonight. Am I overstating that case?
No, I mean, that was a good first drive for Cleveland. Remember, they started their third-string quarterback. Forget about Deshaun Watson. They didn't play Josh Dobbs. They were down to number 3 and a rookie quarterback at that, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And the fact I heard you guys talking when I was in the green room, I don't think they were necessarily picking on Zach McPherson. It's just that Robinson, as a right-handed quarterback, likes to throw to the right side. I mean, he's just throwing. He doesn't have a lot of experience, but they were effective. And I think when you have guys that don't get to play that much, they're juiced up. And I think they were juiced up, and they were pretty effective. And I thought that Eagles defense was on its heels, and it looked bad. And you're saying, oof. What's Nakobe doing? And then he makes the play, and that kind of masks he wasn't that good on that drive. And it was kind of like as he was going by, he got the football. And again, that's not Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is not fumbling that football.
Yeah.
Bottom line. So I think people get too fired up about certain things, like last week, the Eli Ricks pick 6. Same type of thing against a 4th-string quarterback telegraphing. You got to put the context into these things. But I heard you got Zach Cunningham on the other hand. He's going to be the other starting linebacker unless he completely falls apart the next 2 weeks. But he was great in the joint practices. He forced 2 turnovers on Deshaun Watson with tipped footballs. And that's why he got to start tonight. And I thought he was their best defensive player of that first group tonight. So he's playing very well.
I just think Morrow is a little bit too light in the behind to play that Will Backer spot at 215 pounds. There are a few teams in the NFL that love to play smaller, faster linebackers, and it works for them. But for some reason, I've been saying prior to them going out and getting 2 more linebackers that I thought, Christian Ellis was going to supplant Morrow as the starting Will Backer. He's 6'3", 235, 240 compared to 6'1", 215. Christian Ellis played his butt off tonight. He had a good game tonight. He blew up a screen pass. He had nice coverage over the middle on one play, made some tackles, showed up really well on film. But since they've added Miles Jack and Cunningham, as I was telling Mark earlier in this show, don't be surprised if Cunningham leapfrogs over them because of his experience level, and when he stays healthy, he's a pretty good player. I think, you know what I mean? I just think that because of his size and his accolades as an NFL player, that he's better suited for what Desai and Matt Patricia want to run with the games there.
Yeah, and he was, for those who don't know, he was a very good player in Houston who signed at one point a really big money deal. He's very long, and that's where he tips the ball. He understands coverage and where to be. Nick Sirianni talked about him afterwards when he used to play against him when he was in Indy. He said they'd have to throw around him because he's so long. He makes it really difficult for quarterbacks in that mid-range game. So the only question with Zach Cunningham, and I said when they signed Zach and Miles, I said I was more excited about Zach Cunningham because he was the better player, but you had to see if he had anything left, and it looks like he does.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to turn out. Now, Miles, on the other hand, he's going the opposite direction. He didn't get into the game until I think 3 minutes were left in the third quarter. So that's not a good sign. So I think one is working out, one is not working out. But but D-Gun, you're right. Christian Ellis is going to be on this team.
Yeah.
Because he's a good special teams player. They need good special teams players now even more than ever because they lost Sean Bradley, and now they might have lost Zach McPherson, who might be their best coverage player. So they need good special teams players. Christian Ellis isn't going anywhere. But as far as being the starter, I think Zach Cunningham's going to be the starting linebacker.
How about the safety position? First off, just two things on that. One, why did any explanation given as to why Kayvon Wallace came back into the game there in the fourth quarter?
No, we didn't ask Nick that. I didn't even think of it. I was surprised to see him out there. Okay. So that's one I should have asked.
Oh, come on, John. No, I'm just curious. Yeah.
They played, Nick did say it was obviously a long game, but there was a lot of plays as well. So maybe it was just a rep thing. Remember, Reed Blankenship didn't play. So it was essentially Terrell Edmonds, Kayvon Wallace, Justin Evans, Sidney Brown. Somebody's got to play till the game is finished. So that kind of factors into it as well.
Not a flashy game tonight. Real quick, just on Sidney Brown, not a flashy game for him tonight. Did anything jump out to you about Sidney Brown's performance?
No, he keeps running behind even Justin Evans. And I'm surprised by that because, if you added up the first team reps in training camp and in the preseason games, Reed Blankenship has taken every first team rep except when they defer to him in games, which he's now a deference player. So you put him aside. He's a starter. Then everybody is sort of rotated next to him. Of that group, Terrell Edmonds has gotten the most first-team reps, followed by Kayvon Wallace, followed by Justin Evans, followed by Sidney Brown. I'm surprised they're being so slow with it. My buddy Tim McManus probably gave me a thought which might explain it, in that this whole philosophy is built on, and Nick talks about it all the time, limiting explosive plays. If you're not in the right spot, doesn't matter how athletic you are, if you're going to give up big plays, they're not going to put you on the field. So I think with Sidney, it's about he's got to slow down a little bit and he's got to understand the defense a little bit. And when that comes, he'll be on the field. But until that comes, the last thing they want to do is him running the wrong way and somebody gets behind him for a 60-yard touchdown. That's exactly what they're trying to prevent.
John, what are we to make of Edmonds' status on this team? You don't hear his name called much. And obviously he's a 6-year vet, so he has that experience. But should we hear more from him, considering?
Well, that's the kind of player he is. I would say he's a lock, and for this reason, D-Gun, he's not a lock as a starter, but he's going to be the linebacker in the big nickel. So Sean Desai likes to play that 3 safety look. How much, we'll have to see. But when he does, Terrell Edmonds plays that sort of a glorified linebacker position. So even if he's not the starter, even if he's beaten out by Kayvon Wallace or Sidney Brown, he's going to be the guy that comes in the big nickel. So it's going to be one of two things for Terrell Edmonds. He's going to start at safety, and when he moves in to the big nickel as the linebacker, they're going to rotate in either Wallace or Justin Evans or Sidney Brown. Or, if it's Kayvon starting or Sidney Brown, he's just going to come in as that glorified linebacker. So he's a lock, but it's a matter of what his role ends up being. And that's sort of the type of player he was in Pittsburgh. He's not splashy. He's not going to be C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but he's consistent and he's not going to make a lot of mistakes.
Okay.
John, what the hell happened on that safety play?
Josh Sills happened. Josh Sills.
Yeah.
You got to block the back end. You got to block the backside. and he just completely whiffed. And I forget who the player on Cleveland was, but ran it down from the backside, and they couldn't get out. And that goes back to play before Marcus Mariota, bad pass, is why the reason you're backed up.
Yeah.
But when you whip like that, and again, but at the end of the day, it's preseason, right? Josh Sills is not going to be out there.
No.
That's normally going to be Cam Jurgens. He was playing right guard, and hopefully you don't have that type of situation. But yeah, he completely whiffed. Completely whiffed.
Hey, John, we got to see a little bit of Tyree Jackson. I've been waiting 2 years to see this guy. Caught a nice pass over the middle. Obviously, health has been his downfall. They have Dan Arnold in here, Calcaterra. Do you think there's any way Tyree could make this roster? I mean, he's got that big body, but just
I know he's such a tease because he's so athletically gifted.
I like that tease. I like that.
Yeah, and you saw him get in the open field, and he's just, he's so big, he's so athletic, and he used to play quarterback, for those who don't know, in college in Buffalo. And he was a really good quarterback. So the thought process was, maybe turn him into a Logan Thomas, who was a great quarterback in college, turned into a really good tight end. But as you mentioned, D-Gun, he just injuries. It's ironic. He had that stress fracture in his back, making a phenomenal catch at training camp. And then he tore his ACL. I don't think he's going to make the team. He might be on the practice squad again. I'm a little disappointed in Dan Arnold. I thought that's a guy who could help this team.
Yes.
But he has not flashed. He was great in the spring, but since we got to training camp, he hasn't really flashed much. And Calcaterra is clearly ahead, so it's not fun, but I think it's going to be chalk at tight end. It's going to be Goddard, it's going to be Jack Stoll, and it's going to be Grant Calcaterra.
John, when they brought Arnold in, and I put it out there, I said I thought he could emerge as the number 2 tight end. He's an accomplished blocker, but if you look at his career, he doesn't have a great volume of catches, but he does have good hands. And I thought because of his NFL experience, 7 years in the league, you look at the other two. One's a better blocker than catcher. The other one's a better catcher than blocker. Here's a guy who can do both well, even though his volume of catches is not that great. But you're exactly right. You really haven't seen much from him.
No.
And it's like.
And he's getting reps, and he's getting reps with the third team, and he hasn't moved past that. And that's a bad sign at this stage. And, he's always been a guy who he had that little run when Jacksonville traded for him. And he had a couple big games. And, I talked to our buddy Colin Thompson about him, who's, an NFL tight end. And now he's with Minnesota, Colin. And he said, he's a great receiver, but he's not the best blocker in the world. So he's more of a flex guy. But I thought the Eagles, as Super Bowl contender, I thought that could help them. He could go win a game for you with a big catch, maybe week 13, week 14 versus Grant Calcaterra. Like if you're a 5, 6, 7 win team, you keep the young guy. You keep the young guy with upside. But I thought Dan Arnold could be that veteran player. And we saw it in 2017 with the Garrett Blunts and the J.J.'s and the Chris Long. Somebody like that on this team, but it just hasn't manifested itself in training camp.
John, last one for me. I know we got a week to break this down. Who starts preseason game number 3? Is it as easy as Tanner McKee, or does Marcus Mariota get more reps?
Well, I think Marcus is going to start because he needs a lot of reps with this offense. I was questioning whether Marcus would start this game because Kevin Stefanski let the Cleveland writers in on it pretty early that Dorian Thompson-Robinson was going to start. And I said, Well, maybe Nick sees that and says, why am I even going to bother with the backup? But now I think we saw why he bothered with the backup, because the backup needs to learn this offense a little bit better, to say the least. And if anything, he regressed today to the point people are talking about a rookie 6th-round pick beating him out. Now, the Eagles aren't. I want to make that very clear. The Eagles do not think there's a backup quarterback controversy. But any fan watching this game is going to think Tanner McKee's better than Marcus Mariota, and it's going to be tough to tell them otherwise. That's how poorly Marcus Mariota performed. He was just not good. There's no way to frame it.
John, that last game is going to be a whole bunch of no names playing in the game. Would you even put Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith on the field if Nolan is healthy?
No.
Would you even come close to putting him on the field in a situation like that?
No, especially now that Nolan banged up the shoulder. Certain guys have to play. But remember, they changed the rules so you can carry 90 the entire time. It's one of the untoward aspects of the NFL, because you played these guys and they're not going to be here after August 29th just to get through and make sure your key guys are healthy. Now, certain guys have to play on the back end. And there's still some people, some bubble players, and you'll see some of it. But, yeah, the deference players, we're not going to see Jalen Hurts. We're not going to see anybody. Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now, as you mentioned, like here's what I don't understand. Like today, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis started, and they played, I don't know, the first 2 series, maybe the first series, maybe that was it.
Yeah.
What's getting accomplished by that, other than them potentially rolling an ankle, or in the case it happened with Nolan, he hurt his shoulder. What's getting accomplished? If they're only going to play a series, just sit them out.
Yeah. Yep.
No, I'm with you. I'm not playing either of them. I'm not playing either of them when it comes to preseason game number 3. John, thank you so much for joining us from Lincoln Financial Field. Much obliged. Catch you Birds 365 tomorrow, you and Jody.
Yeah, back at it early, Mark. You know that. You're an early riser.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I am. The great John McMullen joining us right there from Lincoln Financial Field. John, thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, John.
Appreciate it. All right, Gunner, when we come back, there were 2 what the hell moments. Well, when it came to this Eagle, I'm not even going to mention the safety. We already talked about the safety, but there are 2 other moments. I guess technically it's 3, but we'll get to both those when we come back and put a bow on this postgame show. We'll be back with the JAKIB Media postgame show brought to you by Pond Lehocky coming up in a few.